Hey, what up, guys? So, coming to you this morning, I want to talk about the February boxing schedule. Just give you the basic rundown. I'm not going to get into the details. I'll do that when I do my fight previews. Just want to give you the layout for the whole month of February. Got a lot of cards going on every weekend. So, yeah, pretty excited about that. There's not one weekend where there's not going to be fights. In February. So make sure you're paying attention and you check them out, because I will be, like I said, going live and doing previews and recaps of all the cards over the weekends and stuff like that. So you'll definitely get a lot of info from me about when and where to be watching. So let's start with the coming up this weekend, February 2nd. There's only one card going on. It's on ESPN. It's a 4-fight card, and actually the whole card is going to be good. This thing's probably starting around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm assuming. 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon on ESPN this Saturday. And the 4 fights are, you got the main event. I'll just talk about that first. It's Eleider Alvarez and Sergey Kovalev, the rematch for the WBO light heavyweight title. First fight was great. Going to be a really good main event right here. Really could go either way. 2 of the top 3 light heavyweights in the world in my top 10, so definitely a fight to check out right there. The main event's really a strong matchup and should be a really good fight. The first fight was really good. The co-feature is Richard Comey, a lightweight title fight. The vacant IBF title on the line. Richard Comey, who's a former world title challenger. He's a top 10 guy for me. Taking on undefeated Isa Shanayev, who's kind of an unknown. But it's for the vacant world title. They're the 2 highest ranked contenders. Should be a good one right here. Pretty much the winner, the reason why this is significant, you should watch this one, is the winner is most likely going to face Vasily Lomachenko in a unification bout in April. So you should check this one out. Next up is Oscar Valdez against Carmine Tomasoni. Valdez is a WBO featherweight champion at 126. He's a top 5 featherweight right now. All action Mexican fighter. Undefeated. Definitely should check him out. Tomasino's not really well known, but it's good to see Valdez back after a long layoff and staying active. And then Teofimo Lopez. You got another. I believe this is lightweights right here. Teofimo Lopez is taking on Diego Magdaleno, who's a veteran, former world title challenger. But Teofimo Lopez is an undefeated lightweight on the rise. This guy is mean. He is badass. A lot of talent. Definitely going to check him out. He's very good, guys. 4-fight card this weekend, ESPN. You will not be disappointed. Check it out. All right, now we'll jump into February 9th, where we got 2 cards kicking off that day. One just changed, actually. First on Showtime, the main event is now Gervonta Davis against Hugo Ruiz. It was supposed to be Davis against Abner Mares. So now it's Davis versus former 122-pound champ Hugo Ruiz. Definitely not as intriguing of a matchup, but I think you're going to have the same result that you were going to have in the Mares fight anyway. But I'll get into that later. But that's what is going on that night. It's a triple header though. Erickson Lubin was supposed to fight as the co-feature against Ishe Smith in a 154-pound fight, but that fight, I don't know if that's on the non-televised card or not, because they're talking about somebody else fighting as the co-feature. But definitely the one kicking off the show is a lightweight battle between top 10 guy, former world champion Javier Fortuna against Sharif Bozeri, who I believe is also a former world champion. So that should be a decent one right there. Top 10 lightweight trying to get back into the mix. So that should be good. The other card that night is on DAZN. And not a lot of big names here, but good fighters. In the main event, you're going to have Ray Vargas, undefeated 122-pound champion at super bantamweight. He's taking on the guy that upset his mandatory number 1 contender, Franklin Manzanilla. Not a big known name, but he did have a big upset last year, so this should be a good one. Vargas is tall, talented, throws a lot of punches, very entertaining fighter, so that should be a decent fight. The co-feature is knockout artist and undefeated 130-pound champion Alberto Machado, just staying active against some guy named Andrew Cancio. Again, just a stay busy fight, but his title is on the line. Then you got Joseph Diaz Jr. is fighting at 130 pounds for his first time that night. That should be good. He's taking on some nobody. The guy's name's Charles Huerta, but he's testing himself out. If you missed Joseph Diaz and Gary Russell last year, Diaz, even in defeat, is very talented and a good fighter, a guy on the rise, so we should see what he does. And then Azat Havanassian, who is this Turkish, very tough Turkish fighter who upset Ronnie Rios last year at 122 and then ended up fighting, Ray Vargas, the guy in the main event. He gave him hell for 12 rounds, lost a close decision to him. So that should be, he's on the undercard. That should be good. So a 4-fight card, 4 fights worth watching on DAZN that day, February 9th. And then Showtime's got the triple header. So that should be good. The next day on February 10th, ESPN is coming back with a card featuring Jose Ramirez, undefeated 140-pound champion, the guy from Fresno. He's taking on former world title Chase Cepeda, only one loss in his career. That should be an all-action fight right there. Really looking forward to that one. That should be good. Ray Beltran, former world champion, is fighting that night, his first time at 140 against some Jander. And then Genesis Servania, former world title challenger, very action-packed Filipino fighter, is returning to action, fighting for his first time this year. He's taking on a nobody. So that's a pretty good card for a Sunday ESPN card. That's going to be in the evening at, I believe, 4 o'clock on that Sunday night, February 10th. So definitely check that one out. That should be good. Then 5 days later, on Friday, the 15th of February, we're going to see Rob Brandt. He's a champion at 160, which is middleweight. He beat Ryota Murata, who's a 2012 Olympic gold medalist, and was next in line to face Triple G after Triple G lost to Canelo. They were talking about Murata fighting Triple G, and Murata got his ass whipped against this guy, Rob Brandt. So, we'll get more into that later, but Brandt's a talented top 10 middleweight, and he holds a piece of the world title now. So he's definitely a guy you want to check out. And that should be a good way. That's his first title defense after pulling off the upset. His first fight on Top Rank, and he's fighting on ESPN Plus. So this should be a decent one. I haven't heard anything about the undercard, but Bob Arum should give us a couple decent fighters on the undercard that night. We'll see. And then the next day, on Saturday, February 16th, Fox has a good card featuring Leo Santa Cruz, the 126-pound champ, number one guy at 126. Very entertaining fighter. He's, this is a prelude fight. He's staying busy against some guy named Rafael Rivera. Again, a stay busy fight, but it could be a prelude to Gary Russell showdown or him moving up in weight and fighting Gervonta Davis. So seeing him in action is going to be good. But the undercard that night is going to be a war. You got Omar Figueroa, undefeated former lightweight champion, against, tough contender John Molina Jr., former world title challenger. They're fighting at welterweight, so these guys don't have to restrict their weight anymore. They get to go toe-to-toe at a respectable weight. I think it's going to be an all-out war, all-out action war. Both guys haven't fought in well over a year, so they got a lot of ring rust, but I think it's going to be toe-to-toe war on the undercard, and I definitely think it's ending by knockout. Omar Figueroa and him on Fox, and John Molina on Fox should be good. And then the last day of the year, there's two cards going on February 23rd. First, from England, and they haven't announced what network it's going to be on yet, but you got James DeGale against Chris Eubank Jr. James DeGale, former two-time super middleweight champ. Chris Eubank's a former world title challenger. Eubank's a top 10 super middleweight, and James DeGale is a top 5 guy. And we're going to see if he's going to hold on to that. This is a big domestic rivalry right here. Should be a good fight. The undercard's got undefeated heavyweight Joe Joyce. He kicked off the Deontay Wilder Tyson Fury pay-per-view with a brutal knockout. He's fighting former champ Bermane Stiverne. So that should be decent. And then you got former featherweight champ Lee Selby on the undercard against a guy named Omar Douglas as Selby moves up to lightweight. And he's still considered, a top 10 featherweight. He's moving up all the way to lightweight. So that should be interesting to see him in action. I'm not sure if all three of them are going to make it on American television, but DeGale and Eubank should at least. I'm thinking it's probably going to be on a Showtime International card because this card in England's being promoted by Al Heyman. So I'm thinking Showtime International, possibly it becomes part of the Fox card later that night. But that's what I think is going to happen. They haven't announced it yet, though. And then the Fox card that night, actually on FS1 that night, you got a world title fight for the vacant WBC super middleweight title, which is 168 pounds. Former champ Anthony Durrell is facing a Turkish contender, Avni Yildirim. Vacant title on the line. The winner's probably going to face David Benavidez next, and that should be good. So that's the main event. On the undercard should feature 130-pound contender Shavkat Rakhimov, who's undefeated, very tough Russian. He should be on the undercard that night. And that's pretty much it for the month of February, guys. I tried not to get so much into detail and keep it short. I'll get it, like I said, I'll break down and get into all the details as we go forward. But month of February is going to have some good action. And it's kicking off with what I feel is the best matchup, Eleider Alvarez and Sergey Kovalev. I'll come back tomorrow and break down that fight and the whole card and let you guys know what I think. And that's pretty much it, man. So